Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Write or Die Show. I am your host, Randi-lee Boslaw. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking to Tina Fumo. Welcome, Tina. Excited to have you on the show.
Hello, Randy. How are you doing?
I am good. And I'm very excited that you are another Canadian author on the show.
I am. I'm in Edmonton, and my book it's a true story account. It does take place in Canada. So yeah, it's Canadian writer, Canadian content, and we're Canadians.
Yay! Not that I don't love all my American guests or even my international guests over in Europe, but it is always nice when I get to talk to another Canadian author.
Yeah. I think I've only had one other Canadian podcast host.
Well,
so again, not that I don't mind, speaking to the American podcasts hosts or Australian or wherever they're from, but yeah.
But it is always nice when you meet another one. So with that being said, we know that you're Canadian, but tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in your neck of the woods, Randy. I was born in a small town just north of, well, it was a small town then, now Barrie, but I think it's grown quite a bit.
Oh, it's quite large now.
Yeah, it's quite large now. Yeah. And I was born in the old Vic Hospital. I guess a little tidbit there for anyone living in Barrie. But the old Vic Hospital now is an old age home. So I often joke I might end up in the same place where I started, if I ever retire and go to Barrie again or something.
I can't. The hospital I was born in was torn down now because they built a whole new one. So
okay. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not a place I go visit, but it's just mom, that's where mom told me I was born. So it's like, oh, okay, I believe you. I guess I didn't know I was a baby.
Yeah, that's funny.
So yeah, I was born out there, but I grew up in a town on Georgian Bay, so Collingwood, and that's pretty much predominantly where I went to very good school there, St. Mary's Catholic School. That's still there, and got my education. I went to university in Toronto, and then moved out west in my early 20s, and I just never left. I stayed out west, so I lived in Banff for 30 years of my life, and that definitely a big chunk of who I became was that mountain girl, and I became a mom there. I got married and had the kid and got divorced, and I still had the kid. So she grew up in Banff, and she's the focus of my book, because she later met a guy and then moved out to BC. I didn't really I knew it was a mistake, but I mean, since when do kids always listen to their parents? Never. And then in her mid-20s, she met another fellow and then got pregnant right away and then had a baby. And so that's the focus of my story, Fancy Prison, because what happened to her during her pregnancy and then when the baby was born was absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, when people read my book, I've had people with their feedback now, because the book's been out now for a couple months, so of course I'm starting to get feedback, but people are like, they're just so shocked. They're like, what? Like, how can this be Canada? I'm like, yep, that's exactly
right.
That's exactly how I felt. And what was at stake was the custody of my grandchild. So yeah.
So did you only have the one daughter, or do you have?
Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, I'm just skating by on the minimum. I had one child that made me a mom, and now I have just skating by on the bare minimum there too. But they're the focus of the book that I wrote. And it wasn't that long ago because my granddaughter is only 4 years old. So our
Oh,
experience with this system, it only happened in 2017. And it's probably still happening like today somewhere
definitely. Because nothing
across
catches up
Canada.
that fast.
No, especially when it comes to bureaucracy and government, because
Oh, I know.
when you become a parent, yeah, as you know, because you have to sort of go in, you go day to day, but you also plan for the future.
Yeah.
And you don't plan for like next week. You have to plan for, okay, their next grade and their next grade. And okay,
Yes.
we're saving for college. Governments don't do that. Governments plan for the next 4 years and how do they get elected in the next 4 years. That's all they do. So you can't you can't raise children day to day and you can't plan in 4 year increments with children, because once you become a parent, that's forever. That's a relationship that you will have till the day you die. And in fact, it usually goes on your tombstone,
Yeah,
Tina,
it does.
Tina, loving mother and grandmother and, God
Yep.
willing, great grandmother,
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So let's now talk about mental health. And you start us off wherever your story starts.
Well, I guess the mental health in my book is definitely the shattering emotions that happen when the social workers took away a 2-week-old baby from her mother. And you find out in the first chapter that my grandbaby was fine because she had a spiritual connection with me. And quite frankly, she was the only person in the room that had any power, because my belief is Christian, and she had just been delivered to us from God 14 days earlier. But what happened to myself and my daughter was trauma. Like, just that's trauma. That's just, we were blindsided by it. And for me, it was easier to cope with because I'm older and I had never had anything like that happen to me before. Like, my child hadn't been taken away from me, so I wasn't triggered by anything. And then as you get older too, as far as mental health goes, I don't think that we experience mental health maybe any more or less than young people. I think what happens as you get older is that your coping skills are a little more honed.
We hope
So
so.
you're a little more confident and like, oh, okay, all right, I recognize this for what it is, trauma and or a stressor, and then this is what I can do, how I manage stress in my life, and then you cope through it. And it takes time. Like, it's just like anything else, it's maybe a lot of the mental health is overwhelming because maybe people just expect to be able to like take a pill and then solve it. And I don't really agree with that. I think a lot of times it's like, no, you kind of, it takes time to build a good foundation of good mental health.
Yes.
So the solutions don't happen overnight. It takes time, and you have to do a lot of self-care.
Exactly. So, okay, you brought up coping strategies, which is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And what are those coping strategies that you use during this traumatic time?
Writing, for sure. Yeah. When we went to BC and then we came back, I was so shell shocked. Like, I just could not believe what had happened. And I just could not believe the power that the system has. And so here I was in fancy prison, and I explained how I came up with the name in the book. But when I got back, I wrote and wrote and wrote, because I had so much tension and there was so much stress, but I had to get it sort of out of my head and onto paper.
Yes.
And that helped a lot. Yeah, like, that helped a lot, because that became like, I certainly understand why in healing like procedures, like 12-step, alcoholism and stuff like that, touch wood, I've never been in it, but I've certainly heard enough about it that a lot of the healing that they use is through journaling, how it helps, I think,
Yes.
people to write down their thoughts
A
and their
very
feelings.
common theme
Mhm.
in the interviews, and granted, I'm interviewing only authors, so obviously writing is a big thing, but a very common theme is journaling. So
Mhm.
even the authors that I've interviewed that don't write nonfiction are still doing their journaling, and they're not publishing that stuff because that's not what they write. That's not what they're into. So, I mean, you can write this stuff and it never ever has to be seen by anybody else, but it's such a relief to get it out. And it also helps you when you get it out, it helps you to identify what emotions it is that you're struggling with. And when you can identify those things, you can start to identify triggers. You can start to identify ways that you're being helped or what things are really not working too. So writing it out is huge. And you don't have to be an author. You don't have to be somebody, you don't have to even write it in full paragraphs, full sentences. Bullet points are fine. Right?
It's whatever, however you're articulating it.
Exactly. And I mean, if you're not, you don't like writing in general, I mean, text to speech is a bit, or speech to text is a huge thing now. You can very easily just talk it out and then it's written out for you.
Exactly, talking it out, talking to yourself. So and that being said too, I think what maybe journaling helps
Hello
you do.
everyone, this is Mr. Fridge, who is not supposed to be on my desk, but he is.
Oh, he's got beautiful blue eyes. My goodness, what's his name?
Mr. Fridge.
Mr. Fridge.
There's a funny story there. Mr. Fridge, get your butt out of the camera.
Yeah.
We got him.
Mr. Fridge is mooning me. Yeah.
So we got him from the Humane Society. We always do rescue animals. And his story was that they found him in a fridge in a hoarder's house. So they named him Mr. Fridge. And when I read his story, I was like, oh my goodness, you poor baby, you have to come home with me. And so we kept his name.
Yeah, Mr. Fridge.
He is a big suck. He is an attention seeker, and just a sweet, lovely, lovely boy. But you keep your butt out of the camera, okay? Of course. Because we just got the new puppy, he keeps hiding in the basement where he's not supposed to be. But
and cats are, I've never had a cat, but you said that that's a new microphone, so he's probably quite curious about that. Like if it's a different setup down there. I don't know. I'm asking it. Like I said,
well, normally he's not down here at all. He's supposed to be upstairs, but he's a little stinker around down here. So. There's everybody's catness for the day. So back to coping strategies. So writing was a big one. What else did you use?
Yeah, I think while writing, I just want to make one more point about writing is that it helps. I think when you're stressed and you're overwhelmed and you feel like your mental health is suffering, it helps. Writing helps because I think it just, you make specific points. So if you look at the whole picture and you're overwhelmed by the big picture, that like you sort of give in to that because it's too overwhelming. But at least writing, you just take it like little step by step by step by step, you know, and little bits rather than trying to cope with the big, you know, huge issue.
That's such a good point. And by doing that too, you're slowing yourself down. In order to look at all of them.
You're forcing yourself to slow yourself down. Like I know for us, that's what in our journey, that's what we had to do. And we had help. Our friend Suzanne, she became our biggest advocate too. And she pointed that out to us because she had experienced the same thing, but she didn't have a happy ending with hers, but she could sort of identify the steps that we were going through, and she could see my coping mechanism, how we were taking, rather than be overwhelmed by the whole hopelessness of it, we just went step by step by step by step. And I would just like, we would just focus, okay, this is what we're going to worry about now. Let's deal with this. Like they're claiming that you're a meth head. Okay, well, let's do what needs to be done there and get the evidence that we need. Okay, now
Yeah.
now they're claiming that you're like their reasons would change all the time, right? So
Yeah.
then now they're claiming what, you're unstable. Okay, so let's focus on that. You know what I mean? So it was just
Yeah.
step by step by step. And Suzanne said, like, yeah, that's the way to do it, because she goes, I always thought that you could just snap your fingers and have an instant solution, but solutions and change, if they come, they usually come very slowly. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it's the same thing like you were saying before. A lot of people think I'll take this medication and boom, I'm better. But that's not the way it works. There's a lot of slow progress that goes along with it. Not to say medication is wrong, because without it, I wouldn't be here. But there's a lot of other steps that have to go along with it. It's a big overarching thing that you have to deal with. Like, mental health is a very large problem that you have to deal with, and there is no one right answer. There is a bunch of little small answers that accumulated become this big thing.
Yeah. And I think part of that process too, to becoming better, is that you have, as an individual, you need to learn what works for you. So what works for someone else might not work for you. And that is healthy, I think. It's just learning, okay, well, that, that coping skill might work for that person, but it's not something that I would do. And you can pretend to do it, but if you don't really feel it and it's not working for you, then try something else. It's just, yeah.
That's why I love talking to all of these different people, because everybody is sharing what's working for them. And so you can take it, try it. If it doesn't work, cool, you tried it. Like, it's not a bad thing if it didn't work. It just means that not to do it again and try something else.
Well, or even maybe that didn't work at the time, but that's not to say maybe down the road, you're aware of it now. So maybe for a different stressor, just try it down the road for something else, kind of thing.
Exactly.
I don't know, like, it's just we're talking hypothetically, but it's such a complicated subject. I mean, there is
it totally is.
There is no really.
And if you combine our journaling with trying different strategies, then you can actually see your progress and you can make notes. So I always tell people, keep a self-care journal. And so you can write down, just because everybody always says go have a bubble bath. So write down bubble bath and try it.
That's a good one.
Afterwards, you come out and you're like, well, I don't feel any different. Cool, write down, didn't feel any different. Now you know a bubble bath doesn't make you feel any different. Next, you try getting a haircut. I'm just picking random things, right? Because sometimes getting that nice fresh haircut is like, I love it. I feel so good after, right? It makes you feel good. And if you're feeling good, then you can deal with another problem. And maybe meditation, you can try that. And in your self-care journal, you write, meditated for 2 minutes today. Cool. And then maybe in 6 months, you're writing meditated for 6 minutes. Right. So it shows you progress, and it shows you what is working, what isn't working, because there's so many different things that you can try. And a lot of people say exercise, but
I was gonna say, I understand you like kickboxing, and when I'm on my second husband, but when I divorced my first husband, he'll probably never watch this, so we're good. But I took kickboxing for about 5 years. I lived in Banff for, I think I was telling you, about 3 decades. And 5 of those years I took kickboxing. It was very good exercise. But I was going through a divorce. And so every time I went into the kickboxing and just like, pummel the punching bag or whatever, it was my ex-husband. And I wasn't hurting him, but I was definitely getting out my frustration.
With
dealing with him, it's like, so
That's awesome.
I really liked kickboxing, and I learned to have a heck of a kick too.
Yes.
How high can you kick?
Pretty stinking high, because I can do the splits. So We're good.
Whoa, holy, yeah, okay. I can't kick out. Well, I can't do it anymore, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so, yeah, some people love kickboxing and some people would do it and go, well, this is boring. It doesn't mean exercise isn't working for you. It means that one particular
Yeah.
exercise isn't. So you try another thing. Like I know some people love just going and lifting weights. And I lift weights because it's good for you, but not because it's the most enjoyable thing for me. I prefer cardio personally, which is why kickboxing is really good because I love cardio. This morning I finally got our elliptical put together. So this morning I finally went for a run on it. And I was like, oh, I miss running so much. I love running. Right. And some people hate, like my husband hates it. So you had like try different things. Well, I hope that your story has a good ending.
It does, yes. We just celebrated another Christmas with our grandchild, and she's 4 years old. She'll be 5 in a couple months here. And we just, I mean, it sometimes hits me at Christmas. I mean, that first Christmas when we got her back in 2017, oh my goodness, I remember Silent Night with all the candles at church, and I just bawled my eyes out. Oh, you got another cat there.
Yeah, so here's Smokey. She is a troublemaker.
That's it. They're loose now.
I know. You guys are supposed to be upstairs.
Well, we'll wrap it up because anything I'm saying now can be read in the book, and this will be the cat lovers podcast.
Right? I know. I could totally do one all about cats or dogs. I have 4 cats. And now 3 dogs.
And 3, oh my goodness.
Because we just got the puppy.
Okay. The animal show. Yeah.
Exactly. Stop moving my computer, kitty. So where can people get a hold of your book?
Yeah, I think the best way is to Google Fancy Prison by Tina Fumo, but be specific and put my name in there, because if you just Google Fancy Prison, you're going to end up with a bunch of guys in orange suits who are serving out country club prison sentence. And that's not what my book is about. My book is about the child welfare industry. So Google Fancy Prison by Tina Fumo, and you'll get the Amazon link. You'll get my social media links. It'll link back to podcasts like this. And for anyone, I mean, other than Canada, then it automatically goes to like Amazon .uk or whatever, like whatever country
wherever
you're in, to order the book through Amazon.
Perfect. And we're going to stick the links in the description below as well.
Oh, perfect.
Whichever ones it was that you sent me, they're going to be down in the description.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think I sent the Canadian links with Amazon. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, awesome.
Excellent. So what social media are you on?
I check Facebook and LinkedIn regularly. So Facebook, I'm under, I can't remember, Tina Fumo, I guess. Just look for Tina Fumo. And then LinkedIn, I think it's Tina Fumo Martin, maybe. I use Twitter, but I don't check it every day. So yeah, I am on Twitter. I think on Twitter I'm on Fancy Prison, but
Perfect. So yes, all of those links are going to be down in the description. So super easy to be able to click and follow you and get a hold of your book and find out more about this child welfare system up here in Canada. We had to deal with it just because of my kid has autism. And so sometimes there would be meltdowns and the hospital trips. And then we'd have to talk to the welfare system to make sure that we had all the supports in place. And it was a very different experience, but there was a lot of bureaucracy, like you were talking about. And I know a lot of parents that have kids with disabilities have had to deal with the welfare system, the child welfare system as well, just because you do go through so many doctors and so many appointments and so much therapy that, it looks like, hey, what are you doing as a parent? It's like, well, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. So step out my way and let me do what I gotta do.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I've honestly lost count how many cases I've heard or I've read about where a parent is struggling with their child, like to get them treatment if they have a disability or autism or whatever. So they reach out to the system for help, and they losing their child in the process, and
Yeah.
that's not what it's supposed to do. It's supposed like I thought it was supposed to help parents. So what you have are parents who are suffering in silence alone, because I mean, who's going to reach out to a system if you're afraid that they're going to take your child away, so they're not getting the
Exactly.
help that they need, which is
Exactly.
ridiculous. It's
Yep.
counterproductive. It's not what it's supposed to do. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I mean, when your kid does have a disability, you need a lot of support for your child and for yourself, because
Yeah.
when you're about to have a kid, you're not picturing a child with a disability. And I mean, I don't love my kid any less, but I definitely wasn't thinking as I'm pregnant, oh, I'm about to birth this child with autism, and I know I'm going to have to get the speech ready and the OT ready and
Yeah.
the behavioral ready. I wasn't thinking none of that. I was
Yeah.
thinking I'm going to get the little potty ready and the crib ready and daycare. Like, so, it's just a
Mm-hmm.
different way of having to look at what you need to do as a parent, that if you don't have a kid with a disability, you don't really think about. And so, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different supports that you got to find. And it would be nice if we could ask the system without fear of being told we're bad parents, when all we're trying to do is help our kid as best as we possibly can. Thank you, Tina, so much for sharing your story with us, for being on the show. And I really do look forward to reading your book. And of course, everybody make sure that you check out the blog, because probably by the time this is out, I'm thinking the blog will already be written. So make sure that you check out my blog with the book review of Fancy Prison.
Thanks for having me today, Randy. It's been talking about my book and our journey and just overall mental health and coping skills. It's awesome.
Again, thank you, Tina. Make sure that you check out the links in the descriptions down below. Hit that like and subscribe button here at the channel. You never want to miss an episode. As well, we do have a merch store where 10% of the proceeds goes back to the Canadian Mental Health Association. And there's some pretty cool shirts on there. I mean, obviously, I think so, but seriously, they're cool. Go check them out. And remember, the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly.